I'm going to tell you about the time that I accidentally hurt my girlfriend. Or more so about the time that I accidentally killed my girlfriend. And hopefully by telling you first, I'll be able to answer my son's question of, why did you kill my mom? 20 years. And I still haven't summoned the courage to answer that one yet. She was a bird watcher when I first met her. Well, more so a bird watcher in training. I think what she liked most about it was the nature. I met her while I was walking my dog in the park. It was a beautiful thing. It was a beagle, and I loved her. Funny thing was that no matter how far you threw a ball into the trees and bushes, she would always be able to find it and bring it right back to you. And Sarah, well, she just adored my dog. At first, she paid more attention to her than she did me. And I found it rather lovely to have somebody be so genuinely affectionate to an animal, even if it did make me feel a little insignificant. And I ran from her. Make no mistake, in my younger days, I was not the ugly and scruffed up thing that you see before you today, but I was a bit of a coward, though. And her, she was just breathtaking. She said to me that day, like, "Your dog is so cute!" And I barely even stopped. I just called back, screaming, "Thanks!" She had long auburn hair that ran the entire length of her back, as most girls' hair did in those days. And she'd later tell me that she actually refused to cut it for so many years because she hated the shape of her head. And it was silly. And deep down, I think she knew that it was silly as well, but she was kind of stubborn that way. The second time that I ran into her, I actually had a bit more confidence because she noticed me, the dog, but still me first. So I sat down with her, and this time I only took in her features. They were just leaping out at me, begging to be noticed. And I did, because she was a stunner, the likes of which that I haven't seen before or since. Like her long auburn hair, or her bright green eyes that lit up with every fascinating fact about her chosen subject. Or her lips that always had to be the perfect color, because she was never satisfied with them, you know? She always thought they were too big or too dry looking, whatever that meant. Whoever is drawn to me is going to be drawn to my lips. You were. And she wasn't wrong. Not at all, but she was already perfect, you see. And she was such a people person as well, even that afternoon, managing to captivate me with something that I found as boring as bird watching. But her, she made it sound like it was just the most amazing pastime. We exchanged numbers that day, and we parted ways, and I barely waited a day before I had to see her again. And my friends, they noticed a difference in me right away, even before I told them that I was seeing anybody. An extra, like, pep in my step, or my views on life not being so jaded and frickin' miserable. And her and I, after a while, we became like one person. I mean, we did almost everything together. The only thing that we didn't do was talk about our work, which was fine by me because, I didn't like talking about my work very much. I thought that supervisor of a chicken factory was actually rather boring. No offense to the people that are proud of that line of work, but it just wasn't for me. So we never had that same simplistic conversation over and over again. "Oh, how was your day, darling? Oh, it was so good, dear. How was yours?" "Good." No, no. We filled our free time with walks to the park or drives to other further away parks. Looking back on it, I suppose that we were basic people, but I liked basic. I was the type of guy who would sit hand in hand with you on the couch, rather than getting dressed up and going bar hopping until the wee hours. Started practicing a few months ago. I was never really into it, but Sarah always thought that I needed a hobby. It's funny, there's this song now that reminds me of her. It's called Shoes. And I don't know why, but it just speaks to me now. You know, I'd listen to music in the shower, or I'd put it on while I was cooking or cleaning or something, and Sarah would always catch me just as I was tuning up my air guitar for a particularly epic solo. Years later, I'd see one of these bad boys at a flea market or a Best Buy, if you can believe, and I'd think back to those moments and just put me off the idea. But finally, I gave in, and I bought one. I thought that Sarah might appreciate the effort. We really started to build a life together, actually. We bought a little house just outside Toronto. Cute little thing. The town was actually being built when we moved in, if you can imagine that. And my brother, he always teased me after he first seen the place. He was like, "Damn, bro, your downtown is considered a post office and a pizza. Good for you." Thanks, bro. But I mean, we loved it nevertheless. It was in a nice neighborhood. The neighbors were quiet. It was pretty decent and affordable, and quite frankly, I think what matters most is that it was ours. Something to call our own. After a few months, I would catch Sarah staring out into the back garden through the window, and I would just ask her, like, what are you thinking? And she'd reply with the usual, "Oh, just about tomorrow." Or, "I think we should grow some fruits and veggies this year. What do you think?" But one time, she turns to me and she says, "About what our kid might do out there. We should get a little pool or something." Well, it's the first time that she had ever mentioned kids or anything so long term. Like, yeah, we had been together for a few years, and we had actually been living together 2 years prior to the move. But even still, you never truly know until they start suggesting long-term futures like marriage or children. And in regards to the pool, I mean, I absolutely hated them. Or, for that matter, any kind of body of water. See, my mother, she... My mother took my brothers and I to the beach when I was rather young. I think 9, 10, or 11, something like that. Anyways, my brothers, they were athletes even from that early on an age. They would play soccer every day after school, or be throwing the football around constantly. Because their dad was a former Olympic wrestling champion. dabbled in shot put and strongman competitions, and even played football during high school and college. He was built like a brick shithouse, is what I'm trying to say. And I say their father, of course, to indicate that he wasn't mine. My mother and my dad were together at a very early age for her. I think it was like 16 or 17, maybe younger. She didn't actually speak of him much, mainly because apparently he would be screwing around with whatever woman he could find in a short skirt. And then I never got a second story, and I can't get one now, so that is canon until further notice. I actually asked her once over dishes while she was washing them, why was my dad never around, like ever? And she just muttered while she was cleaning, just, because I could do better. So, so the beach, with the beautiful water and the beautiful sand and the beautiful people and everybody that wasn't me was pretty to look at. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was not a fat kid and I was not a skinny kid, but the places where I was pudgy were the unattractive spots, like the belly and the bum and the boobs. And like, the random people at the beach did not care about what this kid looked like, but my brothers did, though. And they teased me constantly. It always felt so cruel. Like, consider if I took you and your one insecurity, and I made just a rather rude joke about it. You'd probably ignore me and maybe call me an asshole and just be done with it, right? But imagine an entire room full of people coming up with unique and creative ways to attack that one insecurity that you have. And it's a little bit harder to ignore, isn't it? Or compound that with the people that are supposed to love you. And then it really doesn't feel good. And perhaps I was supposed to have thick skin, being the fact that I was the eldest son, but my mother... We swam pretty much the entire day, only getting out for a few moments to eat a sandwich that my mother hastily created in the rather dirty-ass kitchen that she never cleaned. They jumped back into the water. I walked, taking care of the shallow bits, knowing my swimming limitations, while they swam freely throughout the stretch of water. Excuse me. My younger brother, actually, almost disappeared at one point. He swam so far out. And then, like a dolphin or something, he leapt out of the water and dived back in, catching my youngest brother, who dared follow him out to sea. And I think that's what bothered me most, if I'm honest, was the freedom of it all. They were free. They could do anything. They could swim for as long as they wanted, or play for as long as they wanted, or participate in any sport they so desired. I had no such luxury. I had no such freedom. I didn't play sports. I didn't play with other kids. I wasn't a coordinated person, and I can only blame myself for that, really. But even at home, I didn't have any freedom. Because you have to remember that this was the 1970s, and I had to be there for them. I had to be taking care of them. I had to prepare dinners or run out to the grocery store and buy snacks when my mother was out working 2 to 3 jobs, depending on the season. So I had to be there for them. Well, they were just free. So I hated the beach. I hated the beach, and I hated the water, and I hated everything that it represented to me. But when Sarah suggested a pool, I barely hesitated in order to make it happen. And it nearly bled me dry of almost all of my savings and all of my energy, but I did it. And she was actually quite proud of me. And I was too. And how are you doing? Does anybody ever ask you that? I mean, I know, you're supposed to be the listener. And hey, we all need one of those. So, does anybody ever stop and ask you how you're doing? No? Well, then how are you doing so far? Let's see if I've got this one. I hope it doesn't sound bad, but just it helps calm me. And it gives me something to focus on, or rather, maintain focus. I could never actually finish a full thought. I've always had trouble focusing on things. Usually I would procrastinate or just get distracted. I could never actually finish a full task or thought most of the time. I tried to get Sarah pregnant for a few months. Just the same thing every night. Come home, watch a little TV, have a little dinner, head upstairs. Could catch Judge Judy by 7:30 if I was particularly good enough. I mean, it was perfect. Alright, well, maybe not perfect. Satisfying, efficient, and, I think that at least deserves a clap or two. But either way, I couldn't get her pregnant no matter how hard I tried. And I know with some of these things it takes some time, obviously, but I had this overwhelming urge to prove something. Lord knows what it was, but I just felt like there was something that I needed to do, and this was it. No matter how hard I tried, it wasn't working until June 24th, 1994. The test showed positive, and we were having our first child. Believe me when I tell you that I was absolutely elated, ecstatic. I was beside myself. Here I was with the woman that I loved. A woman who, when she came home at night and snuggled into the bed, she would pull my arms around her and make me like her protective shield. I was in love with her, and we were both connected mentally and emotionally. We wanted the same thing. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this girl, and now we were having a baby to call our own. It was magic. Magic when I looked at that pregnancy test, and I wanted it like it was yesterday. 9 months felt like an eternity. Unfortunately, I think I might have wished too hard. Too much. Probably too soon. I... Sorry. Just thinking about it. Just... Chest pains. Anyway, it was just about 5 months or so when she started feeling a bit funny. You know, normal pains and normal feelings that we kind of just passed off, but abnormal ones we foolishly swept under the rug until her water very clearly broke while I was out shoveling snow. She burst through the doors and she was just like, "My water just broke!" And I thought she was just playing with me, you know. It was too soon. It was much too soon, so I didn't even pay attention. I didn't even look at her. I just continued shoveling the snow until she said, "My water just fucking broke! Fuck the snow!" And I turned around and I was shocked by what I seen. She was pale and so scared. It was a startling difference compared to the woman that I had seen just a few months ago who was glowing and just full of hope. I mean, it was too soon. It was far too soon. He was just over 4 pounds. Can you believe that? I mean, he practically fit into the palm of your hand. He was so small. And I remember my heart just pounding, just racing. I remember praying and begging for God to be real so that he could help my girlfriend and my son. My faith was renewed when, albeit slowly, he started to recover. He could open his eyes, and then he could breathe on his own. He could reach out and he could touch you. He could touch me. I know this sounds crazy, but you have no idea how good it feels to hear your baby cry for the first time. And I know what it sounds like, but somebody out there will know that that was a true blessing. And we were able to take him home after a while, and once we got there, I fell in love with Sarah all over again. She was so gentle, yet deliberate. She was so calm in handling these things that she had never dealt with before, the complete opposite of me. I was quick to panic if he cried for too long or if I pat him on the back too hard. No. But her, she was just amazing, man. She was my angel and my rock all in one. And his too. In all this, I didn't even tell you his name. Joey. We named him Joey. Friends became a huge thing in my house pretty quickly. I wanted to name him Jack, like Jack Tripper from Three's Company, or Archie from All in the Family, but Sarah said to me that nobody names their kid Archie anymore. Which was fair enough, because, I mean, she said that he would be teased as he grew older. And Joey was a cute name, honestly. And it fit him. He looked like a Joey. I don't really know how to properly describe that, but you know how some people say, oh, he looks like a insert name here? That was Joey. And as he grew a little older, he was so adventurous. There was nothing he didn't want to do or try. And you could feed the little fella anything. He was a tank. And as I feared, he loved swimming. Which meant I had to be in the pool hours and hours on end while he became a fish. And we became so much stronger after we had Joey as well. I was promoted in the chicken factory. It was hard but honest work, and it paid very well. And she landed a job as a newspaper columnist. She loved it. Every time she would go off to work, you could just tell that she was absolutely excited for the next story. But, as I said, we didn't talk about work very much. We filled our conversations with religion, politics here and there. We talked about Joey's extracurricular activities, should they ever happen, daycare and all of that extra stuff. I wish I did talk with her more about that, though. I really do. Because somewhere along the line, I lost my passion, you know? I became very stagnant at my work, and after doing it over and over and over again, I was kind of just falling into this pattern of doing it for the money. And money is great and all, but you lose that special something. I became very despondent, and because I was despondent at work, I became more despondent in everything else. And Sarah, she helped me find my father and connect with him. And, you know, unfortunately, he didn't really want anything to do with me. Not at first, anyway. I could tell that I was that little piece of his life that he didn't care to remember, and was more than willing to leave it behind. It was sad because during the few meetings that I did get with him, he had a lot of the traits that I had. Like him, he had a very hard time keeping track of where he wanted to go, focus-wise. He jumped from one thing to another while rarely finishing one thought. Like him, he was very, what's the word? Impulsive. Kind of like me with the pool, right? I didn't like the pool, but Sarah suggested it, and I hopped right on it to make it happen. But also like him is an alcoholic. And he never kicked the stuff. He slurred his words and kind of just trailed off every now and again. It actually caught him falling asleep a few times. Especially if we didn't entertain him and he couldn't keep it lively with his sometimes bigoted banter. He felt that we were pretty uninteresting company. But Joey, he absolutely adored Jory. He was actually quite proud of the fact that he had a grandson, even if he wasn't particularly proud of the man that did it. So after a while, I stopped talking to him. I felt that there wasn't anything left to say, nothing more that I wanted to ask or learn. Sarah was kind of upset about that because she felt that I had missed a golden opportunity to have more family in my life. I didn't really see much a point. My mother died when I was young. My 15th actually my 16th birthday. Yeah. My younger brother got a scholarship to a college outside of Toronto. That was shortly after I started dating Sarah. And then there was my youngest brother. My baby brother. We were at the grocery store and he ran from us. And everything was fine at first. We were bagging our groceries and just doing the regular thing, and Thomas and little Stevie, they were doing their usual thing, just teasing each other, going back and forth, when all of a sudden Stevie just hauls off with this, and he runs. Thomas starts crying, and my mother just screams, "Stevie, get back here!" But he doesn't. Instead, he keeps running. I think the yelling and the crying, it scared him. So he ran right out the door. Right into the street. And the taxi was pulling up. They're always speeding. We didn't even need to go to the grocery store. She always wanted to go out. Just go somewhere. It's just Thomas and I left now. And I got a dog after that. Sorry, I mean after I stopped talking to my dad. So 1999, I want to say. I don't want to make it sound like I replaced my brother with a dog. I didn't. See, I had gotten really upset, and I was really down in the dumps after my first dog passed away, and I think Sarah could see that. She would ask me what's wrong, or is there anything wrong, and I would always respond with the proud, manly response of, no, of course not. Even though that was a lie, of course. And I don't know why we lie about those things. I really wish that I didn't. But everything that I had a problem with, really, was about work. And I didn't want to bring it up. And I know how crazy it sounds that I would go to such great lengths just to not talk about work, but you have to understand how odd and uncomfortable it feels to try and change something fundamental about your relationship. I mean, I was always so nervous and so anxious that I was going to mess something up, that I was causing problems, or that I was going to cause problems. And like, the thing is this, is like, imagine you working on like a brand new car, and you think that you're improving upon it with all of your little tweaks and whatnot, but actually what you're doing is you're changing something that was fundamentally perfect about the car and ruining it. The dog helped with that, you see. And she was a beautiful thing, she was. It was a golden retriever. Russell. There, I'm not very good with names. And I also realized that I said she and called her Russell. Definitely a he. Anyway, it helped calm my nerves. And it helped settle things, and it kind of changed our relationship without having to change something fundamental that absolutely worked. Made sense to me. And Joey, oh my God. Joey just loved him. And his eyes, they just lit up when he first seen him. Didn't know what to do with himself. Didn't know what to do with him. Just adored him. And to be honest, I adored the dog too. Our neighbor worked in construction. And he worked really long hours as well. He moved in after recently separating from his wife. Sarah wanted to know all the details, but I didn't particularly care too much. From what I gathered, he had cheated on his wife, but the side piece wasn't too interested in having a family, so there you go. Maybe I should have cared more, but I mean, I more so just invited him out of a courtesy for Sarah because she hated the idea of anybody feeling alone. I didn't have too much sympathy, to be honest, especially because he was handsome and built of stone. Maybe that's me judging a book by its cover, but I really didn't like him too much. There, I said it. I really didn't like him too much. And it's not because he was a bad guy. As a matter of fact, he was really freaking nice, which, to be fair, comes off as rather fake when you consider his history. Maybe he's turning over a new leaf, Arthur. Oh, fuck off, I reply. Callous? Perhaps, but you know, Anyways, he got along with us rather well. I invited him to a few barbecues and a Thanksgiving and some other minor holiday that I can't remember. But he brought a few girlfriends along during some of these excursions, but he couldn't keep a woman. Gee, I wonder why. Him and Sarah, they got on like a house on fire, though. And Joey appreciated his athleticism as well. took him to the local basketball court and fine-tuned his skills on baseball for a little league. He actually invited himself to the games. Does anybody else find that rather intrusive? No? I mean, yeah, he taught the kid everything he knew about the sport in order to play, but, I mean, we will tell you how it went. But, Sarah and Joey didn't see it that way. They actually insisted that he be there for the games, cheering them on. Made for a rather entertaining watch when he got a bit too into the games. I just sat there and drank. I didn't pay too much attention. Actually, no. I got drunk during those games. I don't know why I did, I just did. I liked the drink. I liked the feeling that it gave me. It was nice for a change to just be able to have something that could calm me and relax me and just get my brain to just stop. Made things easier to just sit back and relax and just digest everything, even if it was as boring as baseball. And it was nice to see Joey playing along and learning a new activity and meeting friends and having fun, because that was the point, right? Fun. But, to be fair, admittedly, it didn't just stop at the games. I took it home with me. I took it to work with me. It was the easiest place to do it because I had really nowhere else. I didn't go out too much and I wasn't one for the club crowd. Did I mention that already? I think I did. Anyway, Sarah was like that too for a while. But then the neighbor and her would actually go out to the clubs. Not too often, just every once in a while. She would get dressed up and she would look naturally beautiful, classy, sexy. And they would go out until the wee mornings. Which was fine for me because I was able to put Joey to bed and then I'd watch a little TV and drink. Have a little dinner and drink. Get in the shower. Drink. Sit up for her for a few hours in the dark. Drink. Get too tired and curl up in the bed. Drunk. And then I would hear her come in. And the light creaks up the stairs, trying desperately not to wake anybody. And she would go into Joey's room first and tuck him in and give him a kiss goodnight. Then she would come into my bedroom and see me tucked in under the covers. She would take off all of her clothes and she would slide in next to me. And she would rest her head on my shoulder ever so gently. And she would kiss my neck, and I'd squirm a little bit. And she would just whisper in my ear, "How was your night, baby?" And I would just nod, careful not to say anything for fear I might slur my words. And I would just take her hand ever so gently, and in that moment, everything felt so light, so delicate, so perfect. And I never brought myself to turn over. Even as she lied there naked in the bed, I never turned over to embrace her for the idea that we might be intimate. I was insecure. And having listened up until this point, you know that that's true. But I was. I don't know why I was, and quite frankly, I never found out why I was. I was just insecure. I convinced myself that I didn't want to disturb such a tender moment, but I knew that that was a lie. In actuality, I just didn't want to have to explain why I had gotten drunk while taking care of my son. Our son. I started to question why I was drinking so much. What had happened? What did I do in order to cause me to drink so much? I didn't understand it, but it turns out apparently that my friends found this to be a naturally predetermined situation. So I went to some of those AA meetings. I went to 2 of them, and they didn't really help very much, so I just gave up on the idea. I stopped pouring money into it, and I just convinced myself. I said, everything is fine, Arthur. Right? Just everything is fine. Just relax. You are not an alcoholic, so just get over it and everything will change. But it didn't. So I talked to Sarah. I told Sarah about everything that I was going through, that I felt that I had been drinking too much. I had a bit more anxiety than I normally did, and I felt that I had lost myself a little bit. And to my surprise, she was right there beside me, and she was willing to take it head on. And with her and Joey by my side, I actually felt that I was getting better again. Until I lost my job. It was the annual meetings, and in those meetings you could kind of sell yourself in the hopes that you might get a bit extra money because the annual raise was coming up around the same time. I managed a whole 25 cents. Can you believe that? After how hard and how long I worked for that stupid company, 25 cents. So at lunchtime, rightfully, I was pissed off. So I got in my car and I just drank the entire half an hour on lunch. More than I had in quite a long time. And you know what? It felt good. It felt good to have the warm liquid go down into my stomach and just calm me, just relax me. For the first time, just getting rid of all of the anxiety, all of the anger, all of the frustration, all of the depression, everything just stopped. And it worked until I had to go back. I was okay for the first 15 minutes or so. I was doing the usual stuff, packing skids, moving pallets, getting boxes. Everything was fine right up until... I was talking with a guy from shipping. And we were just talking about guy stuff, just about girls, about money, about sports, just the usual, shooting the shit, like you do. When this little thing jumps off of the line and right onto my area, right in front of my skid. Well, obviously I didn't see her, so I spun my skid around and just... She shouldn't have been there! I didn't pack the skid right. I had done it a million times before, and as a matter of fact, one time it actually fell over without incident. So had she not have been there, everything would have been fine, but she was. So then, when I spun around, it wasn't packed right and it... Bastard! God damn, how could you possibly blame her? Just finish it. Just go back and finish. I didn't tell Sarah that I lost my job. I couldn't. I mean, you have to understand that, and even if you don't, I had my reasons. Joey was just starting kindergarten, and the bills were coming in, and that was not something that I could afford. So, in the coming weeks, I signed up for financial aid, which I find too complicated to get into right now. Does anybody realize how absolutely insufferable that process is? And when it came time to go to work, I'd kiss Sarah on the cheek, I'd get in my car, I'd drive out of the city and just go around somewhere else all day. I traveled the entire province, seeking out every nook and cranny that I could find, and the beautiful farms and the parks and even the farmers markets and these odd little strip malls and stuff like that, and the ice cream. Oh my god, the ice cream. Jeez. It was amazing, actually, being able to do all of these things that I couldn't have done if I had my job. No, I didn't go looking for another job right away. I can tell you want to ask. I was very happy being unemployed for the moment. I was very happy being stress-free for the first time, and God only knows how long up until that point. Consider this, everything that I did find, I was able to take Joey to the next weekend. He would love our weekend adventures. I actually became a better father after losing my job. I figured out a very valuable lesson. That going through the motions, it's freaking stupid. So no. I didn't get another job right away. This was a well-earned vacation. And Sarah and I actually went on one of the weekend adventures together. It was the first time that we had done it. Because up until that point, she was working day and night. Some development in Alberta's... Oh my god. In Alberta's... Crap, I forgot. I can't remember what was so important that she needed to be working every damn day and night. And I'm sure it was important. I'm not disputing that. It's just I can't remember. Anyway, where was I? Right. So, she went on one of our weekend adventures, and I took them to this little known park, outside of the city. And the fun thing about it was that if Joey enjoyed it during the summer, I thought that I'd be able to take him tobogganing to the same park in the winter. Seemed like a great idea to me. And this park, it stretched for as far as the eye could see. There was every little small pathway that led you practically to nowhere, could circle back around. Oh, it was incredible. He was running off and taking a look, chasing all the birds, examining all the trees. It was perfect for Sarah, former bird watcher in training. As we were walking around, she was asking the usual questions that I was ready for. Where did you find this place? How did you manage to get here? This place looks amazing. Yada, yada, yada. Until she hit me with a question that I wasn't ready for. Why were there so many miles on the car all of a sudden? Yeah. I wasn't ready for that one. It was hard to explain. And a reasonable question as well. I mean, because up until that point, we had only used the car for groceries. Just to go to work if we were very, very, very late. Otherwise, we just carpooled with our friends. So how had more than 200,000 miles built up in less than 2 months? And I am a really, really bad liar. All I could think of at the time was just, I started going to other AA meetings. Tried them again. Oh, really? Where? What? Where? Where were the AA meetings? Oh, just one of them out of town, you know. Oh, interesting. Doesn't have a name, does it? Oh, of course it has a name, sweetie. You could tell that I was digging myself a massive hole. Eventually, I just said, let's just enjoy our time. I will tell you back in the car. I just wanted Joey to enjoy his weekend with his family for the first time. His mom and dad were together on an adventure. It was amazing. And the park, which started out as this massive, vast sea of greenery, turned into as cramped as any linen closet that you had ever seen. No, on the way home, the ride was painfully quiet. And the summer heat just blazing down on you. It didn't matter what I tried to do. No matter how high I cranked up the AC or cracked the window, it felt as if the world was shrinking on me and the heat and the humidity just blazing off of me. And I could feel Sarah's eyes just glaring at me. We didn't say a word to each other. Sarah just kept Joey entertained, and we stopped off at a McDonald's in order to get him some food. There was this knot in my throat that wouldn't go away the entire time. So we made it home, and it was about 7:30 or 8 o'clock. She got Joey a bath and put him to bed while I sat on the couch just waiting. She was doing everything that a parent should do. Kissed him goodnight, came downstairs and met with me, and then, like for old time's sake, she hit me with it one more time. How had so many miles built up on the car? And I thought about lying. I thought about saying that I had lost my job, but there were just some financial cutbacks, and I was thinking that I could land a job in time and you wouldn't even notice. But I knew I couldn't do that. So I told her the truth. I told her that I lost my job. That I didn't pack a skid right and it fell over onto a worker. And it broke her arm. And it broke her leg. You know, just for a moment, for the slightest moment, I think she actually felt sorry for me. I think she actually felt pity. She actually might have even understood. Until she hit me with the other question. The question that I was ready for, but just really didn't want to answer. When? And when I told her when, well, that pity flew right out the window. And she hit me with all of the venom that she could possibly muster. She was as angry as I had ever seen her. Up to that point, she was the beautiful angel that couldn't put a foot wrong, and I couldn't put a foot wrong with her, but in that moment, she was beside herself. That night, I slept on the couch. Well, I should say slept. I was condemned to the couch. And every half an hour, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that, every time, she would come down and she would just dish out more punishment. I ended up sleeping in the car. I just wanted to get away. Just wanted some quiet. telling you all of this, remembering it all. I really don't want to continue, because it only gets worse from here. And there's nothing that can be done to fix that. I don't think so, anyway. Because maybe in time things may have changed, but in that moment, Sarah did not look at the same man that she had fallen in love with. I was somebody much, much different in her eyes. No matter what I tried to do, no romantic gesture or how many times I apologized, or even finding a new job, though not nearly as good as the factory that I had just come from. Because evidently it is very hard to find another job when you are considered a drunk. Even though I had stopped drinking, I didn't have a single drop for the rest of that summer or that fall. I had one drink at Christmas time. Oh, we had invited a few friends over, and even some friends from our very younger days. A couple of them had just had a brand new set of twins, so it was a celebration. And Sarah offered the drink to me. She said that I had earned it, that I had earned the right to take a load off and celebrate with the rest of them. And at first, I wasn't going to take her up on the offer. I was going to show her that I was stronger, that I was better. I almost forgot that the neighbor was invited as well. Brought over some gifts for the kids. Maybe he was turning over a new leaf. Yeah, right. The way that she glowed at him. The rest of the year was turbulent, to say the least. New Year's Eve didn't feel the same. Nothing felt the same. And 2001 was actually a big difference. The winter felt more cruel than the past ones. And maybe that was just because of the circumstances, who knows. I did take Joey tobogganing like I had planned to do. Sarah was against it, but I had told her and assured her that I would take care of him, keep him safe, keep him warm. But it was negative 40 degrees, so needless to say, we did not enjoy ourselves. But there was this really lovely cafe just outside of the park that I took Joey to get a hot chocolate in him and warm him up. And there was this really nice waitress there named Christine. And she just fell in love with Joey the first time that she laid eyes on him. She gravitated towards us, and she actually talked with us for about 45 minutes, and it was weird because I was almost transported back to my younger years where I felt insecure and I felt like the side attraction to the more adorable thing front and center. But it was right, because Joey was absolutely adorable at that time. He was 6 going on 7. He was in peak cute phase. No matter what he did, no matter what he said, he was just adorable. She entertained us and spoke with us for 45 minutes, like I said, and she said that we could come back anytime that we wanted. And on the back of the receipt, she wrote her number. She was a really, really nice waitress. She was a really nice woman, too. Every couple of weeks thereafter, I would go up to the Hillside Cafe and I would sit there and speak with her. Felt good to have a friend again. I had lost contact with so many once I had really gotten bad with my alcohol, and it felt good to connect with somebody again. I mean, after all, Sarah and the neighbor were getting really chummy at that time, so if she could have a friend, why couldn't I? As spring came in, Joey was getting back into his sports. And there was a community pool that had just opened up across town, and they were giving out lessons. And Joey, he was pretty good at the time, but he was nowhere near to go to that next step, so I was kind of nervous, and I believe rightfully so. So we would get into the pool every weekend or so, just to help him practice on the off days. And when I was there, I was extremely observant. I was taking care of him and making sure that he wasn't making any wrong moves, and I was putting a lot of effort into it in order to get him better, so that when he went off to the swimming practices, I would feel a bit more comfortable. And I skipped a few times here and there. I went up to the Hillside Cafe to talk with Christine. But when I was there, I was good. I was sober, and I was there. I was a good father. I was. So we would practice in the pool, and Russell would hang around and just kind of do circles back and forth while we hung around in there. And every so often he would leap into the pool, to the utter delight of Joey. I didn't like it though, because he shed like nobody's business, and it would always just hang there on the surface, just floating around. And God forbid you were underneath the water at the time, because if he made a big splash, you were sure to get a nice big glop of it along the face and eyes as you resurfaced. But Joey loved it all the same. Anyway, so one day we were in the backyard and we were in the pool. Sarah was on the barbecue, and he was practicing, and Russell again running up and down, following us along. I had stepped out of the pool for a moment, just for a moment, mind you, while I went to the shed to go and find some floater noodles for later on when we could just relax and have fun. Well, there Joey was, out of the pool, running around the pool with Russell. And seemed harmless enough, but when Russell was getting too rowdy, he would get very aggressive. And keep in mind that at the time he was an adult dog, so he was much bigger and, quite frankly, much heavier than Joey was. He was 6. He was 6. I said he was 6, right? Yeah, he was 6. So anyway, they're running around the pool, and he's kind of doing the whole, try to catch me, boy, as you do. He grabs one of Russell's toys, and he goes running around the pool again in a chase. And I can't see any of this. My back is turned for all of this. I can just hear it. And I hear this massive splash after Joey screams out, "Go get it, boy!" And after the big splash, there's a lot of silence for a moment. And then I hear Russell bark. And not one of those happy barks either. It was like a yelp. A cry for help. Something was wrong. No, I turned around, and with floaters in hand, I could see Russell. I could see the toy. I could see the pool. But I couldn't see Joey. So I step a little forward, and there he is. I can see him. On his back. At the bottom of the pool. At the bottom of the deep end of the pool. And I just froze. While Russell was barking louder and louder and louder, and I could tell what he was saying. He was saying, "Help him! Please help him!" But I couldn't. I was just staring, just looking at him, and it's unbelievable. It was surreal to see, because you can see what's happening. And you know what's happening, but because he's not moving, it's almost like it's not real. Like somebody threw an unbelievably accurate representation of a dummy deep down into the water below. And you're just waiting for somebody to pop out of the bush and just be like, "Gotcha!" Like it's some sort of sick, frickin' prank, but this wasn't it. I just stood there staring and it was just a second, but to me it felt like ages, and it was only when Joey's eyes shot open and bubbles started shooting to the surface that I knew that it was real. And I could tell that he was screaming, and I was just looking at my boy, and he was just drowning. And Russell is just barking and panicking, and what must he have seen? What must Joey have seen at the bottom of that pool? The muffled sounds of barking, screaming, yelling, and this blank slate of a man posing to be his father, his protector, just staring at him some 8 feet below. Sarah came rushing outside at that point. She had gone in to collect some dishes, and she grabbed me, and she was screaming at me, "What happened? What happened?" And I didn't answer her. God, why didn't I answer her? What was happening to me? She leapt in to the pool, and she dragged him to the surface and pulled him out. And there was blood trickling from the back of his head. He hit off the side of the pool as he fell in. And he was just laying there. He was sputtering and coughing and wheezing and spitting. And I couldn't say anything, and Sarah wouldn't even speak to me. The only thing that I could manage to muster up was just to sheepishly ask if he was all right and if he needed a towel. But Sarah, she was clutching him in his arms, and she just spat back. She hissed at me. She was like, "Get away from me!" What could I do? I went back into the house. Went upstairs and I closed the door, and I just sat there on the bed, just waiting. And I remember thinking to myself, is this it? I wouldn't blame them if they just got in the car and just drove off, and I'd never see them again. I'd never hear from them again. Until she came in about a half an hour later. She had called the neighbor over to take care of Joey while she came and talked to me. And she just read me the riot act. And not just about that incident, but about everything, about the drinking, about the lying, about everything. She actually thought that my trips to Hillside were me cheating on her. Out of the both of us, I was the... And she was just screaming over and over and over again. Clearly, this is all that she had been wanting to say to me for months on end. It was no doubt telling the neighbor across the street. And I took it. She sat down next to me at one point, because up until that point I was just staring at the floor like a scalded dog. She grabbed hold of my shoulder and she turned me to face her, and she said, "I'm supposed to be able to trust you, Arthur. I'm supposed to be able to trust you. But today you proved to me that you are nothing more than a fucking coward." Remember what I said about your loved ones hurting you the most with your insecurities? Before I go any further, I can tell by the look on your face that you are expecting me to somehow make you sympathize with me for what I am about to tell you. That I'm gonna try to justify what I did or why I did it or blame her or something. But make no mistake about it, there is no justifying what I did. We were fighting every single night. About everything and anything. Every time I tried to go out, she thought that I was hiding something. I was a prisoner in my own mind. I couldn't share a tender moment with my girlfriend. Hell, we weren't even sleeping in the same bed together. And for a couple of weeks, I could understand that, but month after month, 5 months, I was getting fed up with it. The love of my life was ruining it. And I couldn't fix it, no matter how hard I tried. And Joey could see that something was wrong. Even if we tried to be civil with each other, we couldn't. But one night, the night, her and a few of her girlfriends went out dancing. And guess who joined them? Yeah, him. But it meant that I had the whole house to myself. Joey's grandparents had taken him for the entire week, so for the first time in months, I was alone and I was free to do whatever I wanted. So I rented some movies at Blockbuster. You remember those? And I bought a 12-pack of beer. Nothing major. I wanted to enjoy myself. So I got home, I sat down on the couch, I put in the first movie. It had been 1 year since Sarah and I had that big fight about me losing my job. I remember thinking about that before I started the movie. By the time that movie was over, I was out of beer. But I remembered that I had a secret stash of vodka in the kitchen, underneath the sink behind stuff that we had long since forgotten. So with vodka and orange juice in hand, I started the second movie. And I think I made it to the third one. I think it had something with Nicolas Cage in it. Or maybe that was the second one. I laid back on the couch after a while. I would later notice the next morning that there was this massive stain. And I think at the time I either didn't notice or I didn't care. I wanted to get up and I wanted to go and clean myself up, but I was doing so well. I didn't have a single drop. Sarah, I heard the keys and I knew that I was in for it now. And she started screaming at me as soon as she saw me sprawled out on the couch. And she must have been screaming about the booze, but I didn't care. That was what I was reduced to. I didn't care. I stood up. And I don't remember doing that. And maybe I stumbled and that's how my drink fell. I can't remember, but what I remember clear as day was just unloading on her. Screaming and cussing worse than I had ever done before. I never spoke to her that way. But it had just been building up for so long, and I said everything that was on my mind. And the more that I was yelling, the more that she yelled, and we just went back and forth and back and forth. Like this was the first time that we had ever heard each other. And everything was so dark and I was so dizzy, and my body, it was so hot. It was so hot. And I remember just screaming at her over and over again, and we were just, the fighting and the yelling back and forth, and all the bile that we had for each other, and all the venom, it was all let out that night. I remember my head feeling so heavy. And my eyes, they would close for such a long time when I blinked. My eyes closed. And they opened. And there she was, yelling at me, sticking her finger into my face. They closed. And they opened. They closed again, and I remember her calling me a piece of shit. When they opened again, she was standing there, silent, just clasping at her cheek. And she gave me a look that was worse than anything that she had given me up until that point. Because no matter the anger, the frustration, the disappointment, it paled in comparison to what she was doing now. She was scared. She was scared of me. She was so scared. And it just made me angrier. It just made me angrier and angrier. And I remember just screaming at her. I'm like, why? Why did you just make me do that? She tried to back away, terrified. And that just got me angrier as well. She spun around and she tried to run away. But I didn't want her to. I wasn't done. I wasn't done yelling at her. So I reached out for her just to turn her around, to keep yelling. But I was drunk. I had no coordination, so I just... It felt like the world was crumbling beneath my feet when she hit the ground. And I was just looking down at her, at the pool of blood. I got down beside her, and I held her head, and I checked to see if she was still breathing, and she was. So I didn't hesitate then. I reached for the phone, which was all over the floor, because after she hit her head off of the table, I called 911 and I just sat there, just waited. Her eyes opened briefly, and she squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back harder than I had ever squeezed her before. And I just wanted her to be okay. I was begging for her to be okay. And she tried to say something to me. And I didn't hear it. I didn't understand what she was trying to say at the time. And now, when it was too late, she was trying to say, "I'm sorry." Why? Why would you be sorry? Why would you be sorry? What did you do? It wasn't you! It wasn't you! It was me! It was me! I need to be. Why didn't you just punish me? I didn't know what I was going to tell Joey. I didn't know what I was going to tell anybody. I just told them that Mommy had an accident. He was only 6, man. He didn't need to know. I served time in prison. And I was let out with good behavior. I had to go to AA meetings, of course. And I still do. I was able to get Joey back to spend his teen years together, but he grew resentment for me. He hated me. I understood. He was 16 and he got up and he walked away and never looked back. Until now. Why now? Why now? I I miss her. I miss her every single day. I wish I could tell her I'm sorry. It's okay, Dad. It's okay, Dad.